My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it. Do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and beer.
Years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Say community policing, right? What about community dispatching?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Dispatch with me, the Raspy Dispatcher. Today, I'm really excited. I mean, I'm always excited, but especially today, my guest to talk about kind of 911 emergency preparedness, right? That's one thing that I feel we don't talk about enough is that we should be preparing to utilize 911 the same way we prepare for fire drills or earthquake drills. You know, it's all the same type of structure, in my opinion. We need to do more education and more empowerment for our citizens calling 911 so the 911 dispatcher and the folks that are going through the crisis are creating more of a partnership. And, you know, the more successful that partnership is, the more we're able to get help where it needs to go, the right type of help as quickly as possible. So my guest today has taken their experience and their other love and passions and have created a book for children called Can I Call 911 Now? So I'm very excited to bring on Theresa to talk about her passion, how this book came about, and helping folks understand when and what they need to know when calling 911. Hi, Theresa. Thanks for joining me today.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Good to be here. Good to be seen and sharing our two loves.
Exactly. I see you brought a friend.
I did. This is Zulu. This is one of our rescues. He was actually a 911 call. Maintenance guy called. Yeah, 911. He went into, they had moved out and he thought it was a stuffed animal until the stuffed animal moved. And of course, we use protocol, right? EPD for our animal control calls. Mm-hmm. And my coworker, Daniel, he's like, Theresa, it's a bearded dragon. I'm like, oh, those questions are going to be fun. You know, what is the behavior of the animal now? And I'm like, oh, classic. So, but yeah, so he's looking for a home now. So he came to us. I work with animal control through our rescue. So
very, very cool. You know, it's funny. I once had to do a broadcast for a at-risk missing kid, you know, 14, took off, and we broadcasted it, and it was a WFJ with our bearded dragon. And one of my officers, one of my officers was like, nope, I've seen Game of Thrones. I know what a WFA can do with a bearded dragon, you know, like
priorities.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's so fun, you know, California. So most of the time, you know, when we get animal related like 911 in our centers, they don't normally come in with bearded dragons. It's normally a cat, a dog, you know, right. But never really a bearded dragon. So
we get a lot of reptile calls, actually, especially when it's like snapping turtle. The snappers, when they come out to lay their eggs, are like, oh, this thing is huge. It's got to be somebody's pet. And I'm like, no, it probably came out of a swamp somewhere. Just leave it alone. And I actually had to write up something for my coworkers, like, listen, this is what we're going to tell them because animal control is not going. They're not going. It's a wild animal doing what wild animals do.
Exactly. Like we're in their space, you know, that's something like we get a lot of deer calls where I work now. And it's just like, there's deer over here. And it's like, yeah, they're supposed to be there.
I had a guy tell me that the coyote doesn't pay rent. Therefore, he's not allowed on his land. So I was like, well, see how that works.
Well, tell us a little bit how you got into public safety and, you know, what's your story there?
So prior to working there, I worked at Girl Scouts and I had a Girl Scout troop of over 100 girls at one point. Well, the internal affairs guy for 911, his daughters were in my troop. And I'm very outspoken, go figure. And he said, your personality would do great as a dispatcher. And now here we go. 5 years later, here it is. So that's the short end of it. So I came in and I love it. And continue the education piece. So it's been 5 years next month that I've been in public safety.
So cool. It's so funny how, the more people I'm talking to, kind of the way that we all stumble into this line of work. And I feel like a lot of people, they do talk about like, yeah, so-and-so knows so-and-so who's a dispatcher. And they knew me and was like, this is for you. I think this is.
Right, exactly.
So you obviously have a rescue. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I joke it's dispatch by day, reptile wrangler by night. So I raised 3 boys, and with boys comes all the lizards and snakes and amphibians, anything they can catch and put in a jar and say, here, Mom, we're going to keep it. And Mom say no. So we were given a bearded dragon years ago, and it looked kind of funny. And I started doing my research and learned really quick that reptiles are very neglected. They're not housed properly, not by intentional, just not educating themselves. So it started with one bearded dragon with a crooked tail. And now we have over 200 reptiles. We do have several rescues, but I use a lot of my reptiles to educate. So we go live on TikTok all the time. We do, my YouTube is like, I'm not big on doing the videos, I just don't have the time feeding that many animals and working on top of that. But I love the education piece. So when I got released in dispatch, they had what we call the core team, community outreach. They just changed it. Community outreach, recruitment, and education. That's what it is. Sorry, it just used to be the education team, but and that was my thing. I've been Cub Scout leader, Boy Scout leader, Girl Scout leader. I'm like, I can go teach about 911. That's fine. Well, I would always pack out the libraries when I did my free shows for my reptiles. So I just saw it as an opportunity. I'm like, I have their attention. Let me throw in 911. So we kind of compiled the short list of kid calls. So every call in the book is based on a real call, unfortunately. And we could probably write a bunch of those kid versions and just kind of teaching kids when and when not to call 911. I remember I did my first school, and about a week later, I got a kid caller. And he said, well, this lady came to my class last week and said that this is the number I call if I have an emergency. I said, but what else did I tell you not to do? And she's like, are you the lady that came to my class? Yes, it works. It's a real number. You don't have to test drive it.
I was just making sure she was telling the truth. She had this bearded dragon and
yeah, she was calling me out. So that's when I decided to write the book, and then I incorporated the characters are reptiles that I actually have here. And then so we talk about my job as 911, we read the book, and then we do a short reptile show in the end. So they have to sit through what they classify as the boring stuff, the educational stuff, to get to the cool stuff. And but to me, it's just reaching more kids. And I've actually had more of the parents come to me after the show. It's like, I didn't know that. I didn't know this. And these are just simple things about 911. So it's just another way to reach out to kids out there and their parents. The majority of the time, it is the parents that are learning right along with the kids. The kids are seeing the lizards crawling around in the box. The parents are listening about 911. So
it is true. And I mean, I think when we, in general, think about teaching folks how to utilize the systems and, I think, man, these kids have to learn to dial, when to dial, what to say, but in reality, it's like the kids are normally learning directly from the parents, right? That's the main source of information. So if the parent doesn't have that information. They're not passing it down to the kids. So
Yep.
I think you're totally accurate. It's like we're giving them the reptile drawings and the simple language, and the person who's absorbing it the most is the parent.
Right. And then we hosted our first 911 Kids Expo. Coming from the Girl Scout background, we used to do expos for 2,000-3,000 people. So we have a small parking lot, but I filled it up. And so we held an expo that was based on, everybody has the touch a truck events. You see the cool fire truck and SWAT and all this, and we have those here too. But I wanted this to focus on us, back to square one. So when people will call me, hey, can I sit at this table? I'm like, it doesn't fall in line with what we're trying to do. Fire truck wasn't allowed to bring his fire truck. I wanted him to teach fire safety. So if you have a fire, I wanted them to learn what we're going to be telling them through EFD, through protocol. What are we telling them to do on the phone? And I want them to see what that looks like. So if you have to walk a 9-year-old through CPR, that 9-year-old can come and see a CPR dummy. And this is what it looks like, what we're telling you. So they had the cards. The fire guys had the cards. And so the exact verbiage from the protocol, they were showing the kids, this is what it looks like, hands on chest. This is what it looks like to stop the bleed. We had different games and relays about when to call 911 and when not to. Language line. We had a representative there that reached out to the Hispanic community and pulled them in to let them know you don't need to have your 6-year-old try to interpret for you. All you have to say is the word Spanish, and we know. If you can say nothing more than that word, we know to get language line on. So we had different stations. We had our mobile command center for SWAT call outs. And then we did have 2 toys because the guys wanted to bring their toys. They brought their SWAT truck. So I did meet them halfway there. And then we had portables. So the kids got to dispatch to an officer on scene and learned about the codes and signals that we use in our county. And so, of course, I got one of the rambunctious officers. He's like, well, can I act like I'm chasing somebody? I'm like, you can say whatever you want to. As long as you don't take out of this parking lot, you can chase whatever you want. So, but it was really cool. I was worried we'd have nobody, but we serviced over 130 kids and their families. And then, of course, we brought the reptiles because the book was there and they were looking for the tortoises and the snakes. And to see the deputy chief of police, we have quite a few of them. One of my volunteers walked right up to him, just placed the Burmese python right in his hand. He's like, oh. So we're doing that. Well, there's a picture of him then leaning over and actually teaching. So it was pretty cool to see our officers and even the high-ranking officers come out and help educate. It was really awesome. We had really cool support from all departments across, and it was, ground zero. People forget about 911. There's a whole layer that starts before fire shows up. So that was my biggest thing is I want kids to understand why you need to know your address, where you can find your address if you don't know it by heart. And so they had like little magnets that they took. They found where they lived on the map that we had printed up. And they had a magnet that they filled all their information in to put on the refrigerator when they got home. But we look forward to it. We've already got our date set for next year. Definitely not August.
I'm like got goosebumps, like listening. Like it's so cool. Like just being dispatch specific, right? Because too often, I mean, even in our training, right, we're kind of lumped in with the officers, and I imagine I'm not fire or medical, but I imagine the training can be lumped in a little bit with them as well. Right. Things that just don't relate to the job that we have to do, we kind of just get pushed in. Just watch what the officer is watching in regards to this or that, And so the fact that you've created an expo completely dedicated to the 911 side of all of the things that someone's going to experience with having to call us, and then breaking it down to a kid's understanding. Yeah. It's so cool. It's so awesome. I would imagine a lot more departments are going to be interested in that setup and how you've created that in your agency, because I've started to hear a little bit about high schools having courses that talk about the job we do and, like little things like that, but actual departments creating a whole learning experience, like that's awesome. And I think that's something you could package and like show the world.
So it's there. So I sent it to my director. I did the I don't want to call it dispatch for dummies, but it's what it's kind of like like a wedding planner. So this is what I sent her. This is 6 months out. This is who you're contacting. 4 months out, 3 months out, down to the week after. So after the event, I even did, like, I'm old school. I wrote thank you cards. I took one of the chameleon in the book. I took that and put what was it? Radio to all volunteers. I want to give out a huge thank you. And I mailed those to each department head that helped us. So, because it's not just showing up for an event and then it's the end of the story. I want to form that bond. There's been a very big disconnect, between dispatch and PD and dispatch and fire. So I want to kind of, whatever helps to bring that bond back together. But so that was geared towards elementary kids. My next step is middle and high school, which is going to be like an Explorer program, which I know. I heard you were at APCO. I missed you at APCO. I don't know how I missed you at APCO, but there was one lady there that did, I want to say, was it Las Vegas? That has the whole 911 dispatcher for high schoolers.
That's awesome.
And she was talking about how gearing it towards the 5-year plan, and that puts them starting with 8th graders. So kind of putting in together an Explorer program that's geared specifically towards 911.
That's so cool.
That's my next step.
Yeah. And, outside of like, just 911 education and getting folks to understand and be comfortable with what they're going to be asked, what they're going to have to do in these emergency situations, it's also, for the world that needs more dispatchers, exposing kids to another career option at a young age that does not require college education. Right. It's something that for folks who are wanting to get into this line of work, get into this field, get them in early, get them in at a young age, hopefully drop our mandated overtime. But
we don't have that yet. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. We don't have that yet. It's getting slim, but we don't have it yet. So.
But it does create that exposure to these kids. Like, this is
I wish I would have known sooner. Yeah. I mean, I wished I would have known sooner about that. You called 911. Somebody answers. You just never think of, like, who is that person? Is that really a job? And it's a whole career. So
true. So how did the children's book, like, what inspired, like, out of all the things you could have done with your background and your teaching, why a children's book?
I mean, several things went into it. We hear that 2 to 3 year burnout. I was hitting that burnout. COVID hit right at that 2 to 3 year mark. And so I was like, what is this? This is crazy. Everything that everybody goes through with that same burnout feelings. Like, I'm just answering phones. I just got to the point where, like, I needed to do something different. So I started actually on our 911 is Cobb County 911 Facebook page. I started doing videos because our education team was null and void when COVID came into play, right? No more schools, no more libraries, no more nothing. So I started videos. It's called Did You Know Friday videos. So every Friday it's a different topic, and I would take in one of the million reasons why somebody called 911 that wasn't really 911 related, because no centers get those. And so, for instance, we did one on the ELM markers. They're emergency location markers on our trails. And explaining to them why we want you to tell us the numbers on those trails, that it marks us down to within feet of where you are. Why you don't call 911 to ask why the traffic is at a standstill on the interstate. Well, it's because it's 5 o'clock rush hour. Welcome to Atlanta. So different reasons like that, reminding people 511 is out there. I'm sorry you ran out of gas, but if you're on the side of the road, there's not much we can do. You're going to have to call roadside assistance. So it was more, we did the videos there, and then I couldn't figure out how to, I was on the fence about just being done and doing nothing but the reptile rescue and opening our like a brick and mortar. But I love dispatching. I don't know the words, but I love dispatching. I love it's a different way to give back. Yeah, we go through a lot of calls that are not 911 related, but the ones that do come in and that you are make a difference in that person's life, that to me makes it well worth all the other crazy calls that we get that are not really 911 type calls. And then trying to explain to people, you always hear, well, I don't think I could do your job. You could, if you've ever consoled somebody who fell and skinned their knee, I feel you've got it in you. You can do it. You can do it.
Yeah.
We have great training. So I decided, I'm like, well, let me start with the kids. It's got to start somewhere, and these kids are eventually going to be calling 911 for something somewhere down the road. And let's make sure it's right. And what better way than to use my reptiles as the characters. So Turbo is one of my tortoises. Frilled Dragon is my frilled dragon. And I love it. It's not like #1 seller, but
not yet. It coming
right. I think everybody the best one was the cat stuck in the tree, because I know every center gets that call. And then we have to be the bad person when we tell them that we don't come out for a cat stuck in the tree.
I remember early in my training, and when I worked in SAC, someone called 911 for the cat in the tree, and I looked at my trainer and I was like, is this real? Is this real life? And in Sacramento, she was like, transfer it to fire. They will go out. And I was like, really? So
that department is why we're still getting off. I'm
telling you, just over here, just putting out the stereotypes.
Yeah. Well, and in our county, we have one jurisdiction that will go and unlock your car if we have public service ambassadors. But if you're outside of that, although it still has the Marietta city name, if you're not within city limits, now it's county ain't coming. Unless that car is on fire, has anybody locked in it, or an animal locked in it, isn't inside of a structure running, we ain't coming. And so I was like, golly, this is killing me. We should just be flat across the board.
I know, right? It is confusing. Like for us, like we won't go out for non-injury accidents, but I believe CHP always goes out no matter what. And they're like, we need to report them. Like, it's online. It's online. It's we can't determine. We didn't see it.
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. That would be so amazing. But then they'll learn to manipulate it. They're like, oh, but I hurt my knee. And then all of a sudden we have to go, right? But
right? I'm like, look, if we get there and your knee's okay, we're still not taking
it. Juices are out.
Info exchange, bye.
I would not do good out on the street. There's a reason I'm behind the phone.
Oh my! And so my shift partner right now. That's what they say all the time. They're like, I would be like coming up yelling all the time.
Yeah. So. I'd get my pink slip day one. They'd be like, Carcioppolo, respond back to headquarters. You're out.
We're gonna need you to head back to station.
Right, exactly.
L3. Just get off the street. Get off the street. This is so cool. So your department has been, I imagine, supportive of this whole endeavor, because I think that might be something that dispatchers hesitate when they think about like going out and doing like extra stuff like the Rescue Dispatcher, or the things that you're doing is like, what is my department? How's my department going to feel about it? Am I going to have their support? Right. And I think that, especially in policing and law enforcement, like I think there's a lot of folks who are a little nervous to be out there in front of the world talking about these things. And so has your department been supportive? And
yeah, so we had a new director, Melissa Alterio. She is amazing.
I think I watched a couple of her speakings at
yes. So she is our new director. She joined us, I want to say June of last year, maybe May. Anyway, when I say complete turnaround, she was the change we definitely needed. And then now she also brought in another deputy director from Texas. And she was a speaker there too, Robbie McCormick. She was she's one of our deputy directors. She's just been so supportive. She's like, I brought the layout to her. I got it all funded by a local business. So all the supplies and everything, they donated $1,500. So we got t-shirts made for the event. I mean, it was crazy. And then we had the flyers. I had people on my shift is kind of like the rogue shift. You know, you have the type A personalities, and then you have day A, which is us, and A stands for you can only imagine. And I got people showing up from my shift that have never volunteered.
Wow.
And when they saw this one in particular, like, you got him to show up, I'm like, I did. And he's smiling. But she's been nothing. They've all been nothing but supportive. They're like, Theresa, whatever you need, you know, let me know. And we had a couple of hiccups, like the gates to the fence didn't open up on time and a little stuff like that. And it was ungodly hot. That poor guy that volunteered, he actually passed out at the end. And okay, he's not dead. I know who to call.
Hey, it's fine. We kids come here. We're gonna show you in live in action the whole process.
Next year's is going to be in October, not August. Not. But yeah, it was just phenomenal. Like just the support across the board, and then not just from our department to see like the police chief, the deputy chiefs all came out. Like everybody showed up, and they didn't just come out for like their, you know, I call it the publicity picture. They came out and they interacted with the kids and they helped teach, and they were just going, I mean, it was amazing. Everybody that came out was super awesome. They finally got it. I know it sounded kind of, I don't know, sticklerish. Like, you know, they're like, well, we normally do this. I'm like, I get what you normally do, but this is what we're trying to accomplish. And that's not the normal. So, you know, fire's not doing the fire truck. Well, can I bring my rescue? No, you can't bring your rescue. Well, can I just bring my truck? No, you can bring a table. You can bring a table and your gear, and this is what you're going to teach.
You know, but there's something so valuable about setting that boundary, because I think sometimes, again, in this line of work, everybody wants the fire truck and, you know, the officer and and if we're creating these events, we're creating these spaces to highlight the dispatcher. I think it's easy for the folks who are normally in the spotlight, air quote, to go, yeah, but this is what the kids like. This is what they respond to. And it's kind of like, well, I need you to partner with me and take the back seat in this. And I think that's hard for officers and firefighters and, you know, to go, oh, I'm not the star of this show today.
Right. Exactly.
And but you being someone who's creating that boundary and not in a disrespectful way, just kind of ask them like, hey, we need the dispatcher to be the star today. And this is how I need you to support me.
When they came out there and they saw it, they got it. They understood. Yeah. You know, every table was something related to if a kid needed to call 911. We had an L marker. So they actually saw the markers and kids understood why, and they saw the maps. You know, every table was related to some reason that they would have to call us kid related. And of course it was teaching the adults at the same time. But I think that the volunteers, like our incident command center is a huge remember that tractor trailer that was at APCO that was like had the fire pole inside of it and all that for you to go in and check out? Take off the second level. That's our incident command. So they got to go in there, see the CAD set up, see the other room, the control room, and just really understand what we're doing when we're talking to you on the phone and what we're doing when we're dispatching an officer or fire, because we dispatch all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, and the best part I think about it too, is that there's probably a bit of a disconnect in that understanding with the officers and the firefighters and, you know, all that. So not only are the kids learning, the parents learning, the folks who were dispatching are learning a bit too.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and that especially the officers. We always joke, we're like, if you guys would just come sit up here for 2 hours a year and just watch. So while you're asking me to call back your complainant, to come meet you at the door, this is what I got going. Just because your radio is the Q word doesn't mean it's Q on our side. So
ain't that the truth? And especially because now I work at a smaller agency. I used to work at a bigger one, and sometimes it's just me and my partner, and my partner's working radio and I'm working phones, or vice versa. And
that's really small.
Very small, right? We're on a good day 3, minimum 2, and sometimes the officer will ask a question, and then we're fielding multiple 911s, and I'm like, stand by 1. We're balancing, trying to figure out if there's an actual emergency, throwing them on hold. And they're like, oh, can you do this? I'm like, no, you can. You can do that.
Right. Well, that's what I'm not well, I just put in my application for training. So fingers crossed that there'll be mini me's. I don't know which worse. The poor person that gets stuck with me, or the poor officers that have mini me's on the radio. But they have them sit with us, until their class starts. And I tell them, I was like, listen, if you're not busy and they ask you to do something, just do it, because you don't know what they're dealing with on their side. But if it's very clear that you have 19 units on your radio and they all got something, and then they ask you this, negative, you're going to have to call them. Absolutely not, sir. You heard those 2 people just ask for records, and I got to call, GCIC or NCIC to run this. And I'm like, absolutely not.
I've had someone come up and they're like running 5 people out, and then 2 officers will put out a traffic stop, and I'm like, I look at my partner, I'm like, can they read the room right now? 5 people, but again, and that's one of those things. It's like, the more we know about what each other is doing, right, the more aware we're going to be, and the better that relationship's going to be. And that is definitely one of the disconnects we're, I think, constantly trying to create better relationship between dispatch and those folks out there in the field.
I start every morning, every shift. I tell every unit when they go in service, good morning. And when they go home, it's good night. I'm known as the good morning dispatch. As a matter of fact, the sheriff came in our training the other day. It's like, I don't know which one of you it is that says good morning. And I know you're not supposed to say it, but we appreciate you for it. And everybody turns and looks at me. I'm like, just call me out. But I feel it just sets the tone for the day. Yes. Is it proper radio etiquette? No. Does it change the mindset of the officer knowing that I'm telling him good morning? Yes. Let's start it off on a good day and know that your dispatcher is not hating life today. And it's just going to be a good day at work. So it doesn't matter who it is, how many units go in service. I would say good morning 17 times in a row. But everyone gets a good morning.
That's awesome. I think that's such a great way. And you're right. I think sometimes we can get caught up with the what's the word I'm looking for? The structure, the need to be a certain type of way in this line of work. But sometimes, you just gotta let who you are shine through, and I think, like you said, I think officers and honestly folks in the room, if I'm just listening to the radio traffic and I'm hearing you say good morning to the officers, that's going to make me feel a little warm inside. I'm like, oh, that's a good way. That's kind of them. It's a nice way.
Like, oh, Lord, here she goes again.
They might not tell you, but they like it. They're going to miss it if you're not saying it. Watch, don't say it one day, and they're going to be like, you good?
Right, yeah, exactly. They're like, all the days are like, Theresa, shut up. And then the day that it's like, Theresa, are you good? I haven't heard anything from you. I'm like, I'm here.
Right? You didn't say good morning.
It was funny because with the reptile rescue, we had the national night out, and I was there as far as my rescue was there. And I walked out, and the chief of police was holding him and his wife were holding this Burmese python, taking a picture. So he had just become chief of police like a month prior. Sent out his first official email was about me saying good morning. He thought I was just giving like a special message to people I knew. And before he knew it, he realized I was saying good morning to everybody. And it was basically an email saying, thank you for doing that, yada, yada. So I see him, and here I am with this big old iguana, Lucy, sitting on my shoulder, and I walk up to him, and I have my reptile shirt on, and I said, so now he's never met me. And I was like, so now that you've held my snake, do I still have to say good morning to you? And he looked at me, and he's called me iguana, and he's like, your voice sounds familiar, but Theresa? And I was like, yes. And then he just kind of looks at me, because a lot of them don't realize. I mean, we do a lot of events together, and I bring my reptiles. So many do know, but he didn't. And it was just the look. And then there's a picture of us both laughing. And that's the moment he realized who I was. So it's pretty cool. It definitely, watching the SWAT guys run from a snake is phenomenal.
That's awesome. And I mean, it's so funny. How often, I mean, like, I think at my old agency, I think I maybe saw my chief like twice in 3-4 years, and at this new agency, I see them maybe a couple times a week, and it's just so funny as dispatch in general, how these officers hear our voice, know our voice, and a lot of times have relationships over a computer screen, and then you could just walk right by each other, and just not even realize.
Yep.
Oh, that's the person I talk to every day. You know what I mean? So, that just goes.
We have tons. We're a huge county, and for instance, our center, if we were fully staffed, I don't know the exact. It's around 30 per shift. And we have radios that are actually patched together right now because we don't have enough people to man each radio. So, we have tons of officers, I unless they go to an event that I'm at, we have a safety village, which is basically a replica of our downtown Marietta. So each building is sponsored by a business in the county, and it's set up like our little downtown. It has a little square, but that's where we do our big touch a truck event, right? And unless they've come to one of those, they don't know. They've heard about me, but they don't know, and then they're like, oh, you're that reptile dispatcher. Fine. Reptile dispatcher it is. Better than crazy cat lady, I guess. So.
It's okay. I get that. Are you sick? Like, no, just raspy.
Right. I love that name though. That's perfect.
Thank you. So what is some advice that you would give someone who is considering this line of work?
So I came in, I hit 40. So I was kind of worried that, you just don't learn things as fast, or you learn differently at 40 than you did in your 20s, whatever. To say that you're never going to have a bad call, I'd be lying, but to know that if you have a good life balance at home and know how to have ways to let that out. My reptiles is my avenue. You can make an amazing dispatcher. You don't have to know everything. There's training. We train you. We don't just give you the phone and say, here, have at it. Although I felt that way when they say, okay, you're ready to be released. I'm like, are you crazy?
Right, liar.
Ready? What are you talking about? But definitely, if you are one, I think the ones that are community driven, that want to help the community, this is the way. Especially those that I hear all the time. Well, I wanted to be an officer, but I couldn't pass the PT. I wanted to do this, but I couldn't do that. Well, here you go. You get to sit. They feed you junk food all the time. And endless supply of donuts, which I really wish we'd get away from. But
looking for a donut. I love a donut.
Exactly. Like I could show you this donut roll, and it's a way to give back to your community without being in the direct line. I mean, although we are the first responders, it is still a way for those that couldn't be fired, couldn't be for whatever reason. I think if you've ever consoled anybody in a bad situation, you can definitely do our job. We have the proper training, the proper support. Our department has an amazing peer support program. There's just so much more out there now to support dispatchers than there was back in the day. From what I've watched, I wouldn't know because I'm technically new 5 years in, but from what I've watched and heard and read, there's a lot more support here now, especially with the mental health of it all. So, but it's definitely, I mean, it changes your life. So it makes you look differently.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that is a great point. It's one that I've definitely said in the past is like, there's 1,000 reasons people don't end up going into the field in person, response. But I also think that we don't talk about dispatch enough, right? For folks to know that this is an option.
Right.
And us, even just you going out with your reptiles and, this Let's Talk Dispatch, Raspy Dispatcher stuff. And it goes on and on for all the dispatchers that are doing all these amazing things. 911 woman, Ricardo within the trenches, where we're just having these conversations and we're saying like, hey, we're here and we're doing a tough job and we need more people to come out and do this job. I think it's just creating more and more roadways for folks to get into this line of work.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you can always bring in, and biggest thing is like, everything is a recruitment opportunity. Everything is an education opportunity. And take what your passion is at home and see how you can apply it to 911. If you're into racing, create some kind of program for little ones that involves the racing and dispatch. There's ways to incorporate your fun stuff into your work. So you still want a separation of the two, but there's a way to bring them together to where it helps you still continue to enjoy both, without making it feel like a job. Yeah. So I feel like if you find a job that you love, you never have to work another day in your life. But if it's just a job that you're just showing up to, you're going to hate every minute of it. So I think definitely me tying in my passion for reptiles has kind of revamped it. I love the education piece. Education is my favorite. But dispatching, as a matter of fact, I interviewed for a position recently, still within 911. And my biggest fear was I didn't want to come off the floor. It was an admin job. And I'm like, can I
what do you mean I can't answer? Just sneak it in, like put that
right. I was like,
answer, getting your fix, walking out.
Right. I was like, I don't know. I did still interview, but I was like, no, I want to stay on the floor. So we'll see. We'll see if they make it.
I mean, when you are ready to, pull that trigger and leave the floor, we need passionate folks in these leadership roles. You know what I mean? Like someone who gets it, someone who has that passion to answer 911 still, someone who's involved in the education piece, like having those in leadership roles with that type of energy, it just trickles down, right? So the more folks who are still extremely passionate, because I think you can get burned out in these admin roles too, right? Like these supervisor roles, and that we feel that on the floor, especially when there's burnout coming from up top. So I definitely think anyone who's considering unplugging for a bit, we need that passion off the floor as well, but it's definitely hard to step away from the floor.
Yeah, I mean, dispatching is me and my coworker, she's like my partner. We came in together. We went through training together, and we were talking about the other day. We're actually both interviewing for trainer. Awesome. And there's people that were in our group that are already trainers, and we're like, you know what? We're not ready yet. I mean, I probably would have gotten it, but I don't want to do anybody a disservice being a trainer that just isn't ready. Do I think I'm ready now? Probably not. I mean, you can ask me in 20 years and I'll probably still say, right. I really don't know why they keep me employed. I have no idea. But yeah, the education is definitely, finding that passion and keeping the passion, looking past, I always talk about, you have negativity coming in your ear all day. In your ear. They're not calling to say, hey, good morning, have a great day. It's because it's the worst day of their life. But if I can stay on the floor and help the negativity on your other ear stay at a minimum, I'd rather do that. I'd rather stay on the floor and help kind of bring in more positive dispatchers to kind of change that stereotype of the negative floor and the negative outlooks. And because if we keep letting them sit with negative people, it's just going to stay ugly. So luckily now with a good director, we've got a lot of stuff in place that hopefully they get weeded out and either choose to jump on the happy bandwagon or we're going to run you over. So yeah.
I hear that. That's so awesome. Well, where can folks grab a copy of this amazing book?
This book is on Amazon. And all the proceeds go back to our rescue. Because a lot of times our rescues come in. I was going to have my green iguana on with us. She actually had a hysterectomy. She had 56 eggs. She would have died if we hadn't done the surgery. So all the proceeds go back to our rescue to pay for mostly the vet bills and lighting. They have to have proper lighting, even if, while they're here with us. But it's on Amazon, and then they have a Kindle version. But I'm not on Kindle, so you'll have to go look. I don't know. It's a lot cheaper because it's Kindle. So either way, even if you don't have kids, buy one and give it to it's got the ISBN number. You can donate it to your library. So.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, no, that's where I got mine, Amazon. So cute, so cool. I'm actually gonna buy another one and send it to my nieces and nephews.
Well, let me know. I can send you some stickers before you send it to them, and I'll send you some stickers. Yeah. And we're on all the social medias. Our Did You Know Friday videos are on our Facebook page for Cobb County 911. And then our rescue is Scaly Addictions on everything. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Our website is scalyaddictions.com. So we kind of try to keep it easy, Scaly Addictions across the board. So,
and I'll include all of those links and posts in our video, so you guys don't have to go digging for any of it, including the link to buy the book on Amazon, and follow Theresa and all the amazing things she's doing. And I would imagine after hearing this awesome 911 Kids Expo stuff that you got going on, I would imagine some folks are going to reach out hey, how'd you do it? How can we implement it?
I have a template. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I send it to my boss, but I'm more than happy to send it. It's like I said, it's like a wedding planner. Awesome. It shows how I did mine, and then there's a blank template. So you just kind of fill in your own stuff. So
very, very cool. Well, thank you so much, Theresa, for coming on today. I've really enjoyed it. Such great stuff you're doing for 911, helping folks prepare and learn and grow. And it's making me go, I have so many things I want to do now.
Just do it. If you come to APCO next year, let me know, because it's in my neck of the woods instead of clear across over there.
That is true. I think I'm trying to go every year now, so we'll definitely link up in person too.
Fingers crossed. I'm submitting to try to present.
Ooh, see, that's my next big I posted last night on my LinkedIn. I was like, I had a dream that I spoke at a conference and it was terrible. The technology wasn't working. I kept going down the wrong hallway. But when I finally got there, I did great. It was wonderful.
Right.
So
I was on TikTok this morning. I was like, I do good talking to y'all on here, but when it's professional, I'm like,
yeah, I think my opening line is going to be y'all nervous? I'm nervous. Y'all good?
What's in your water bottle, ma'am?
Oh, man. Well, I'll be right back with you, okay?
Right.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Let's Talk Dispatch. Again, Can I Call 911 Now? A kid's book written for folks to learn how and when to use 911, written by a dispatcher. So awesome, so amazing. So definitely head to the links in the bio that I am going to include to purchase your book. Again, all the proceeds go back to her reptile rescue. And if you want to learn more about how to create these opportunities for 911 and kids, definitely reach out to Theresa. I think she's doing a wonderful job in creating those spaces for those to learn how and when they should use 911. Of course, as always, you can reach out to me, the Reptile Dispatcher, Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe to our podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube. And until next time, stay raspy, everybody. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Let's Talk Dispatch. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube at The Raspy Dispatcher, follow us on Instagram, and check out Let's Talk Dispatch anywhere you listen to podcasts. I'll see you next time, and stay raspy.